It's Agnieszka. It's Friday, August 22nd. I posted a couple days ago an introduction about myself, and I had asked if there were any topics that people wanted me to cover. The sort of resounding topic was the transition for back to school and transitioning back into school routine. So I'm going to preface this by saying that the information that I'm providing and giving are things that have worked for my family from the caregiver perspective. I do also work for a local school district, and I've worked as an EA, an RSW, and an intervener. So I also have the perspective of support staff. So I'm going to be sharing things from both of those views. The first thing I will say is return to the bedtime routine. And if you are usually quite regimented or routined throughout the school year, a lot of the time over holidays, those things fall by the wayside. So it can be really difficult after having a 2-month break to come back. I mean, it's difficult for us as adults. It's even more challenging for someone who has a disability or is neurodivergent. So what I would suggest and what I do with my kids is sort of the last 2 weeks of summer break, we start reintroducing the bedtime routine. So dinner, shower, bath, story, movie, game, whatever it is, and going to bed. And then every few days I will dial the time back so that it's closer and closer to their regular scheduled bedtime. I will also then we start setting the alarm clocks, and even though the time is set for later than it would be while they're attending school, it's still that repetition of going to sleep, waking up to the sound of the alarm clock, and getting into that routine. So then the last maybe 4-ish days before we go back to school, they're on the exact time of going to bed and waking up. The second thing that I suggest is having a countdown on a calendar so that they can see sort of when school's approaching, talking about familiar people, reaching out to the school and asking if they know which teacher will be teaching them for the year, or teachers, depending on where your kids are, whether it's middle or high school or elementary, and if they know who the support staff are going to be supporting them. My kids are starting a new school in September, so they don't have any established relationships with any of the people at the school. So we've been going on the school website and looking at pictures and practicing names of the people that work there. And these are EAs, this is the child and youth care worker, this is the principal and the vice principal, and these are the teachers. Even if your kids have already attended that school, going and spending a few days on the playground before, so that they're sort of getting refamiliarized with the playground, maybe having a few friends that they attend school with to meet you at that playground if you haven't had a chance to have play dates over the summer. The other thing that I do is you can do this through a pamphlet or a letter, or I do a flyer on Canva for each of my kids, and it's just a 1-page sheet. It has their picture, it has their diagnosis, also includes sort of their likes, dislikes, interests, their goals for the year, who they live with, that sort of information. And then I also do sort of a cliff notes of their supports, what sorts of things they need, what their least preferred subjects are, what their most highly preferred subjects are, that sort of thing. If there are any materials that we were using the previous year, or things that we've used with our home-based team over the summer, I make sure that I create those or make copies of those things and laminate them. And I do a sort of point form list of how to utilize those things so that it's all sort of in one package. The other thing that has been really successful for my kids, and I've tried it with some of my students as well, is creating a sensory toolbox. And I can do a separate video on that if people are interested. Basically, it's like a little snackle or little tackle box that has their most highly sought after currency. I don't use the word reward, I use currency. So these are things that You keep it in this box, and it comes with a letter and a timer, and it explains how to use it, when to give it, how to give it, and when it should be used and when it shouldn't be used. So I make sure that I stock those, that I have multiple sets of those. The last sort of thing that I'll touch on is one of the biggest challenges for myself as an advocate for my kids has been sort of keeping the lines of communication and keeping collaborative relationships between myself and the teachers and the admin for my kids. Advocacy is the most challenging part of raising children with disabilities of any kind, and it's a challenging relationship to have. I wholeheartedly believe that teachers and educators and support staff and admin, we all want the students that we're working with to be successful. We want them to reach their full potential. Lack of resources and funding and people, it's really hard to do that. Keep those lines of communication open. Do your best to understand your district's policies, the School Act, the Ministry of Education mandates that are surrounding inclusion and support and all of that. Get involved with your DPAC, with your PAC. Change happens with lots of voices, and the more we can come together and support each other, the better it will be in the long run. So I'll just do a quick recap. So the transition back to school, I would say get back on that bedtime routine, on the morning routine, do your countdown, lots of front loading, get your supplies together, get your resources together, keep those lines of communication open. So if there's any other areas that you want me to elaborate more on, if you want me to do a video on what the sensory toolbox looks like, or what the letter that I send looks like, or their flyers, I'd be more than happy to share that. If you could please subscribe and like and share, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you again for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.